All right, so we've been in Texas for about 6-7 months now, and I can, at this point, definitively say that this has been the most interesting and probably the most abundant learning time period of my entire life. And, some good, some bad, and some otherwise. But, it's really put me in a position where I've been having a lot more conversations with people, people I look up to and people I consider to be, role models in this industry. And then also I've been, very fortunate to be able to speak with a lot of younger coaches and kind of provide my insight and things that I've learned along the way. And it's just created a really interesting dynamic for me. And, of all the learning and everything that's occurred over the last half year, the majority of it for the first time in my adult life has not been on the technical, tangible exercise side. It's really been more about the life and the communication, the relationships, and so on and so forth side of things. So for this week's brain dump at the end of the week, I wanted to touch on I guess just like kind of my best insight or advice for young coaches and really just kind of young professionals in general. So let's dive into this. So number one is have a very deep understanding of whatever it is that you do. For myself as a strength coach, human body, mechanics, movement, sport, etc., you have to have a very deep understanding or a very deep knowledge base for what you do if you ever plan to be good at it. Very, very few of us are innately born with talent. And if you're one of those, then disregard anything that I have to say, because I'm certainly not one of them. But I think, that what ties into that is you have to work your fucking ass off. If you're in your 20s, even in your early 30s, you just really have to get after it. You have to expose yourself to things. You have to try different things. You have to learn the hard way. You have to learn the right way, so on and so forth. But when we're talking about work-life balance and things like that, man, and I know this isn't going to be popular, but I don't think that should really be a preliminary thought for people who are under 30. When you're in that early developmental phase, you just have to fucking get after it, and you have to be okay with that. If anybody has to tell you that your family comes before work or whatever, when push comes to shove, then I don't think that there's much that you can, necessarily teach people like that, because of course that's the case. But in jest, we want to really try to develop everything we can as early as we can when you have the bandwidth and you have the resources and you have the physical energy and capability of actually doing so. Number two, identify your end goal. With all of the conversations that I've had with coaches who are younger than me or kind of getting started out with what they're doing, one of the first things that I've really recognized is that most have absolutely no idea what they want to do long term. And I think that there's a little bit of fear mongering with this where, if we feel like we set out this long-term goal, in 10 years, I'm going to do X, Y, or Z, or I want to be this, people feel like it can be almost intimidating for them, or, they anticipate change or whatever, right? And that's perfectly fine. In the last 3 years alone, I've gone from wanting to exclusively be a head strength coach for an NFL organization and running that life. And then I went into wanting to do things with more of the retired athlete population and kind of injury restoration. And then now I'm in this case where I'm kind of working on both ends, and I want to open my own facility here in the near future. And, it's a dynamic thing that's going to continually change. But what's important is that you have something concrete that's out in front of you, so that every decision that you're making along the way is feeding directly to that goal. If the end goal changes, that's perfectly fine. You can change your decision making in your process along the way. But in order to create accumulation or, kind of a momentous type of career path, look at it as one single endpoint that you are inevitably working yourself towards, and everything that you do today moving forward feeds into that goal. Number three, this one is going to speak more specifically to the coach population and the strength coach population, and that is establish your business. You are the business. Establish it early on. Forming an LLC and forming Rude Rock was unequivocally one of the best professional decisions that I've ever made in my life. It was because of that concept, or because we formed that LLC back in 2017 or 2018, kind of on a whim, that we were able to literally live and get by throughout this Texas transition. Had we not had that LLC formed, and had I not had that archive of work and that, client reputation, so to speak, we would have been in a lot of trouble. Here's the other side of this. People are shitty, man. And this is a very cutthroat industry. This is a very unstable industry, whether you're in the private sector or you're in the university or professional setting. We know that there's a very low degree of stability. So having your own LLC and having your own business and conducting yourself in that manner can become critically important for you. It gives you a sense of stability. It gives you an outlet. It gives you an opportunity to have some side hustle or some side cash. And if things continue to develop well, then you can continue to build that business out that is commensurate with where you're at in life. So that is one that even if you have no idea who you are, what you do, or what you want to do, make your LLC early on, establish it, and start contributing to it. Number 4, another one that's probably a little bit biased to the coaching world, but I think this is another one that applies in pretty much all fields, and that is that your reputation is equally or more important than your resume. This is something that we've heard for a long time. It's a classic cliche, but I have now experienced this firsthand in multiple ways on several occasions. And, I'm not here to gloat or brag or anything like that, but I've done a very good job of keeping a good reputation, developing and sustaining good relationships throughout the industry. And I'll tell you what, it's another one that has absolutely saved us. And, with this, being somebody who was so technically driven and just always coveted the knowledge and the information and the technical side of things, if you don't branch out of that and if you don't put the emphasis on relationship building and on your reputation and developing and maintaining, a good network of people, so to speak, you're going to kind of miss the boat, man. There's only so much that information and being a technical, surgical type of person can overcome. People want you around because they like you and they trust you more than what you know or you can provide. Providing value is an extremely important thing, and we'll touch on that too. But preemptively, your reputation is absolutely critical. Make sure that you conduct yourself accordingly to that. Number 4 or 5 or whatever number this is, limit your external stability. Reduce the amount of pillars, people, resources, things, whatever, that you rely on. Develop as much as you can intrinsically and authentically. You have to understand that work is going to consume at least 60-70% of your entire adult life. So this is another one where I've tied my passion into my work, and I feel very fortunate for that. And I understand that's not the case for everybody. But when it comes to the stress, the anxiety, the time demand, and the effort and the energy that is going to be expended into your work, you want to make sure that you are not doing these things simply because you are reliant on other people's approval, other people's offerings, other people's input, or even just as simple as paying you your paycheck. Again, this kind of ties into a couple of these points now, but I think something that I was mistaken on early on was thinking that because I was around good people, or so I thought, that me doing everything that I could and exhausting myself to better the company or better the business, that would be inherently reciprocated, and that obviously isn't the case. So when I look at it from this vantage point now, I look at it as I don't need anything, anyone, or anything material or otherwise in order to do what I do. I am the driver of what I'm doing and my path, my compass. We'll call this number 6. Don't allow yourself to take on the consequences of other people's decision making. This is a really big one, and yes, this is something that's pretty recent for me. You need to be very thorough with how you're evaluating the people that you're forming your business with, the people that you're associating with, the companies that you're working for, and recognize what is their history of consequences, or even just more superficially, what is their general process for decision making. I'm somebody who, if I fuck up everything in my life as badly as possible, if I'm responsible for that, I'm okay with it. If I have to have somebody else's consequences affect my life or my path, that's where I get bent out of shape. So again, this, it relates back to not having external reliance, but you want to be very thorough in who you are associating yourself with, because your opportunities can become negated or taken away or stripped from you simply because of the consequences of the people that are around you. And we'll close out on this. Fuck your victimhood. If you see yourself as a victim, if you see your situation as being unique, or as being special in the sense that nobody else experiences problems, hardships, setback, letdown, disappointment, etc., you're definitely in the wrong fucking business if you're a strength coach. But even, again, more broadly speaking, you want to take full accountability and responsibility for all of the decisions that you make, good, bad, or otherwise, and for the situation that you're in presently, good, bad, or otherwise. I think this is something that's very easily said, but very difficult to do, and myself included on that. But this is probably the biggest learning point that I've had throughout this, little experiment down here, is that you are fully responsible and accountable for the position that you're in. The benefit to that and the upside to that is that it gives you this sense of confidence, or even just kind of intrinsic stability of knowing that I can take a risk, I can risk having failure, I can risk letdown, I can risk all these things, because I know at the end of the day, my success and my lack thereof is going to be a direct result of my thinking and my decision making and my priority. So for wherever you're at with whatever you're doing, again, good, bad, or otherwise, take full ownership, full accountability, and then get off your ass and fucking do something about it if it's not where you want it to be.